LinkedIn is pretty great at a lot of things, like helping you tap into the latest trends and insights in your field. We cannot stop your coworker from tapping her pencil. LinkedIn can help you find new jobs that align with your career goals. We cannot help you find the source of that weird smell in the office fridge. Ew. And while we can't stop your coworkers from bringing their hobbies into the office, LinkedIn can help you bring your career to the next level. LinkedIn is the network that works for you.
Welcome back to the Epic Universal Podcast. I'm entertainment writer Jim Hill, and this is the podcast where we cover the latest Universal news, rumors, and history. And as always, I'm joined by Eric Hersey, who is a very busy guy these days. You and Lauren have an interesting side project these days.
Jim, I just got off another podcast. You're not the only one that can record multiple podcasts in a day nowadays.
Okay. So this is you and Lauren. You were bumping out. Is this episode 3 or 4 of Diz and Hers?
It is episode 3. Now you got the secret pilot episode. So this is the 4th one we recorded, but to the public is 3rd. We made a special Jim Hill exclusive because you've been so kind to let us launch a podcast on your network. So if you haven't heard the plugs via commercial or seen us plug on your social, Lauren and I have launched a new podcast on your network, and it is slightly different than everything else because we are primarily just talking about the Disney community and what they're saying online. So I like to deem it as like the Reddit comments coming to an audio form, which is dangerous.
It is, but it's also fascinating. And I've enjoyed the show so far, and gotten a little preview of what you guys have in store for the latest episode, number 3.
Yeah, Jim, as I was stalking the different forums and on X quite a lot. As normal, that's kind of how I get all the information for Universal anyway, but for a lot of it, I was grabbing, this week we're going to talk a little bit about the cold temperatures. We're going to talk about the Cinderella Castle and the new paint job it's getting. And obviously, there's big announcement today, the new CEO, which big deal. So we kind of had a lot of the scuttlebutt going into that, but also the closing of Dinosaur, which kind of helped me find this, what I like to call a very savage social post. Jim, did you see what Universal Orlando posted on their Facebook page the day the Dinosaur was closed?
Yeah, and I have to admit, this is some A-level trolling of Disney by Universal. They have multiple shots of Jurassic Park, the river adventure and the land over at IOA, with the notes is like, don't worry, folks. We still have plenty of dinosaurs. So it's like...
Right, fresh wounds.
There we go. I mean...
You just got all the Velociraptor, just scraped you in the face, and they're just going to pour salt right in those wounds. That's essentially what happened to them. But I love... And Universal is kind of snarky on their social platforms. They have a little different vibe than the magic, from the Disney one. So I always appreciate it. So I immediately took a screenshot. So yeah, we're going to talk about a lot of the Dinosaur closing over on Diz and Hers. But thanks for the opportunity at the beginning of the show just to tell everybody to go over. Number one, just subscribe to the Jim Hill Media podcast feed, or go over and look for Diz and Hers podcast, and we pretty much will release an episode per week where we look at what everybody's doing online and we talk about it.
Cool. All right, now, speaking of Jurassic Park, we have some additional news about this franchise right after we acknowledge our sponsor, and that is, of course, Be Our Guest Vacations. And are you planning your next adventure? Let the experts at Be Our Guest Vacation take care of the details. As a platinum level earmarked travel agency, they provide top tier concierge service for trips to Universal Orlando, Universal Hollywood, Disney parks, cruises, and more. So if that sounds like something interesting to you, get started today at beourguestvacations.com and be sure and tell them that it was the Epic Universal podcast that sent you. So, okay, let us talk about what else Jurassic Park related is coming over the horizon.
Yeah, Jim. So I don't know if you saw this. It just came out. It's the Xfinity itself had made their own Super Bowl commercial, and it is debuting. It's actually the Jurassic Park team. Did you get to see this commercial yet?
No.
I don't know if it is the full commercial or.
But I just looking at who's taking part in this. How cool. So Sam Neill, Laura Dern, and Jeff Goldblum are back as Dr. Alan Grant, Ellie Sattler, and Ian Malcolm? Really?
Yes, Jim. And so I was very skeptical in a world of AI and all this fake nonsense that you just get trolled with, and you're like, get your hopes up to see something cool. I'm pretty assured that there was no AI involved here. I did watch the commercial itself, and it is, I think it's a longer version that you can watch right now. And I'm sure the Super Bowl ad that they're going to play is, I'm sure, 30 seconds or I'm not sure how much money they want to drop on this, but it's an Xfinity commercial, and it's a really clever concept because anybody that's seen Jurassic Park obviously knows that there is an issue with the power, the internet, so forth. And what they do is a wonderful spin on, oh no, we can't get back booted up online. And then of course an Xfinity guy shows up and he's like, oh, we're back. And then it shows what would happen in Jurassic Park if it didn't happen the way it did. So for everybody to go out there and watch, it is very, very clever and fun. And yes, they everybody is back and it does a really, really good job. So kudos to them. But did you see who directed this?
I have to admit that just the director alone has me intrigued about this. Taika Waititi from, Thor: Love and Thunder and
Ragnarok, right?
Yes. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's the humor that you would expect from him along there. And what they had the John Williams score. So this is this is what they call a money-making ad, or at least money-spending ad. So if you're into football and you don't necessarily care if the Seahawks or the Patriots win, you have a good commercial to watch. So that's coming out with a lot of other. I'm sure that won't be the only Universal-centric commercial we see for the Super Bowl, but that one definitely is coming out.
Okay. Cool. Now, we continue with the Jurassic Park news. Now, this is actually tied to Universal Studios Hollywood. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, this was a tweet that came out maybe a week or so ago, and I had it kind of hit the cutting room floor of last week's show because I'm like, all right, we didn't really have a spot for it, but I'm like, hey, we're talking about these characters. So there was a Universal Studios casting notice that they want to have walk-around characters of John Hammond, Dennis Nedry, and Ian Malcolm in the parks. So I don't know, Jim, so it sounds to me like they're going to have walk-arounds. Do you think this is just going to be the normal Jurassic Park land, or is this maybe one of the Fan Fest nights, or what's your thoughts there? I don't know if they've ever had these walk-around characters.
Well, I mean, they have. What's interesting is if you go all the way back to the opening of Islands of Adventure, the documentary of the opening of the park clearly shows that they had a John Hammond.
Oh yeah,
yeah, and I know that they've had an Ian Malcolm every now and then, but Dennis Nedry, really?
Yeah. Oh, I can hear the memes that are coming out. I think that would be a great one. Have his little Barbasol can, right?
There we go. You didn't say the magic word. So, well, that's cool.
So that'll be interesting to see who they get there, and I'm sure we'll see pictures. But I kind of love these obscure characters that show up at the parks.
Oh no, absolutely, and hoping that when we are out there in March, that maybe these folks will already be wandering the park. But all right, anyway, moving on now to, by the way, a wonderful documentary, if you have not seen it already, music by John Williams. But and that came out last year. I want to say it ran on Disney Plus. But what's kind of intriguing is that this film itself just won an award. Is that correct?
Yeah, Jim, I didn't know this film existed, and I don't know where the heck I missed it. Like, I'm on Disney Plus all the time. How the heck did I miss that this came out? But the fact is that it not only won, but it brought our buddy Steven Spielberg into the official EGOT club. So for those not aware of EGOT, you want to explain what an EGOT is to everyone?
Well, it's so funny you bring that up because, hang on, let me grab my copy. Brand new, wonderful book out right now called Never Mind the Happy. It's show business stories by a sore winner, Mark Shaman, the guy who wrote the music or co-wrote the music for Hairspray and likewise the music for Disney's Mary Poppins Returns. But Mark has an issue because he's not an EGOT. And the thing with when you're an EGOT, you've won an Emmy, you've won a Grammy. Emmy, you've won an Oscar, and you've won a Tony. And with Mark Shaman, his frustration is that he's never won the Oscar. So he's, a get. But yeah, it's only people of a certain level. I mean, I want to say Whoopi Goldberg is an EGOT.
Yeah. Mel Brooks.
Mel Brooks, yes, of course.
Funny enough, Alan Menken and Tim Rice. So those are pretty prolific in the Disney Universal world. Some big names there, but Steven Spielberg just made the cut. He just won. So he end up? He won a Grammy for the John Williams movie, right?
He did. And it intriguingly enough, because I think a lot of us are like, he won a Tony? And it's like, yeah, actually for the musical A Strange Loop. But he was part of the producer group. So, anybody who's ever watched the Tonys, where the producers come up on stage and it looks like, the entire, New York Jets, just sort of like, 35 people up there,
right.
But okay. So, well, good for Steven. All right. Good for him.
Yeah. No, I thought that was newsworthy enough. But the other thing that, so we had some good feedback from listeners this week, and a couple of them I just wanted to share. So last week we kind of talked about the new Wicked show. We talked about the new trademark, which is the Oz-tacular Spectacular. So we talked, and we didn't really know, we have theories and so forth. But listener Jared wrote in and kind of said, hey, what about that new theater that they're building in Epic between the entrance and Super Nintendo World? Could that possibly be a theater for the Wicked show? And that, of course, intrigued me enough to say, Jim, what's your thoughts? Do you think they'd bring Wicked into Epic? It just doesn't. That's my thought. Is like, no, we got a brand new park. We don't need like a boost, but it could make sense, maybe. What do you think?
That's intriguing. I mean, they are building a black box, theater there, which can support all sorts of things. And I have to say, given the design aesthetic of the frontmost part of Epic, if you squint, it's definitely Emerald City-esque. But I think you're not wrong about the fact brand new park doesn't really need all that much help to attract people, whereas. Let's face it, we have two other theme parks that could use a little love. And we've just been talking about, the work that's been going on at Lost Continent. Likewise, what may be soon coming over the horizon for Springfield, USA and Fast Food Boulevard. So I'll put it this way. I think Jared is on to something here, but let me go work my trap line and see if anybody wants to volunteer anything from Universal.
Right. Well, we got off our last, when we did our last podcast, it wasn't minutes later we got off, and I saw someone post online, and I'm like, how did I not think of that? Well, listen, Jim, we talked about how the Monster Makeup Show was closing down for a revamp. Could they possibly put something there? I mean, it's kind of catty corner from the Wicked Experience costume thing. And so I looked it up. I'm like, all right, so Monster Makeup, Wicked was known for pretty good makeup, right? And or costume design. So somebody else had that theory, and I'm like, that's not a bad idea, right?
I gotta admit, that would get it in the park, and certainly it's a stylized enough building, and certainly what you could do. I guess I'm almost reluctant to put this idea out there because I love the stuff that's already in the lobby of the Monster Makeup Show. There's so much Hollywood history in there, and the notion, but you could use that space to put you could literally take all of the props and the costumes that are down the street in the old Hello Kitty store and move them into the lobby, and then do think about it, just and not to spoil Wicked for good for people, but just, walking people through how Fierro got his scarecrow makeup. or for that matter, what's his name, the Munchkin,
I know who you're talking about.
Bach,
Yes, Bach. Yes,
how he
yes,
became the Tin Woodsman. That's an interesting idea. Yeah.
Well, and then I looked it up. So they were 2005 nominee for Best Achievement in Makeup and Hairstyling for with the Oscars, and then in 2025 they did win Best Achievement in Costume Design. Okay. So I mean, like there is precedence to say, hey, look at this number. Like this is a great franchise to talk about that. It's a little bit more updated than the current show, and they could definitely use some of that, and it would just pack the house. I'm sure. Like I mean, there's not a lot of seats there, but you could definitely pick up some of that lost queue space, or essentially the people that aren't going to Rip Ride Rocket because it's not there. We can definitely get them shuffled over there and in a queue and take up some. So I thought that was very interesting. But yeah, we'll continue to see where that Oz-tacular Spectacular is going to be.
All right. Again, intriguing idea. Let's see what pans out.
We also had another listener writing, Corbin, and this one was an interesting one, that Corbin was at Epic Universe and just had a general question about character appearances, especially the Donkey Kong. So he just went there and tried multiple times to meet Donkey Kong, and were told by the team members that the appearance times weren't listed on the app, and they were kind of uncertain on schedule. So they gave different answers, kind of not suggesting that Donkey Kong might appear around 1 or 4, and then another one said, well, maybe not. He maybe ate too many bananas. So the funny thing is, he was curious about like what determines these characters that when they come out, like why aren't the schedules clearly communicated? Is there like an operational reason? And then I answered him back and I said, you know what? We had this very same experience when we went down in the summertime with the Night Furies. We kind of knew where they were at. We went and talked to a cast member. They're like, well, maybe around 15 minutes at 1 over here. And then we waited and nothing came out. Jim, any idea kind of why they're not like listing, or is that any insight there or any theories? Or do we need a friend of Donkey Kong to write in and be like, hey, this is it?
Well, again, the interesting thing with Epic Universe is, they're still running this park at about a 2/3 of what its actual capacity is. And as a result, you're seeing Universal often make choices to the effect of, we only have, say 20,000 people in the park today. So, and with that few people, you don't have to do the full court press, largely because, if, for example, you had 35,000 people in the park that day, you'd have to have Donkey Kong out. You'd have to have the Night Furies out, just to give that many people that, something to do. Because right now, the park has, 11 attractions, maybe, if they're all up and running, if you count all of the shows and all of the rides. Now, mind you, supposedly in 2026, going into 2027, we will see Universal ramp up attendance in this park. And on the heels of that, I think we'll see a much more robust entertainment program, which will mean, Donkey Kong will be out meeting people, and so will the Night Furies, because they'll have to. They'll have to give these people something to do. But at the same time, remember we were just talking about that black box theater. That will be added to the mix, and that will give people other things to do. In addition to, we've talked on this show about the nighttime fountain show. And trust me, that'll definitely be added to the entertainment schedule. Stay here till 8 o'clock at night to watch the fountain show.
Yeah, and it would be interesting. I'd wonder to even talk to Len. I know they do really good work at Touring Plans talking about character interactions. They always say they do really, really well. And I just never thought of character interactions being a major thing at Universal. They show up, like you have the Simpsons and Scooby-Doo, but but it doesn't seem like there are, besides, meeting the dragon over in Burke, not too many of them are scheduled where they're always out. So
it's so interesting you say that, because when Jim Schill and I went to Dark Universe, and it was literally, we're walking into the land, we're heading over to the Frankenstein home, and out of the corner of my eye, I see, inside of a doorway, I can see that Frankenstein and his bride are doing a meet and greet. But, and the thing is, I walk around to where the line is, should be, and there's no line because of the way that building is configured. Here are, two of the marquee characters in that land available for you to do social media with or get your selfie. And because the queue, it's suddenly that, the story they always tell about Tomorrowland at Walt Disney World, where they put the entrance from time to time in the wrong place. And they literally had to build a marquee in the middle of the street and put a A-frame sign out front to the effect of, there's a show in here. I worry about that with Dark Universe, to the effect of they did such a good job of creating this tight little village, but the fact that there's a meet and greet hidden in there that nobody seems to know about, kind of a shame.
Yeah, and I just feel like it seems more like a Disneyland approach, where if you're at Disneyland, characters just kind of come out and you just talk to them, and it's not really scheduled. It's more a like impromptu interactions, and I just get the vibe at Universal that is more like it. There's very few like, hey, this is the app, you need to go right here. This is the place you meet this person at this exact time all day. Where you see that with the Princess Hall and over in Norway, like where there's rooms that are made specifically just to meet characters the entire duration of the shift, where at Universal it seems like with the exception of maybe Shrek in DreamWorks Land, there's just not as many. But
interesting point.
Yeah, no, but we'll keep an eye on it, and like you said, I think you're 100% right that like there's no reason to bring Donkey Kong out right now if everybody else has stuff to do, right? And we got one last listener note, just to kind of, Joe N. wrote in, we've been talking over the last several weeks about the Universal Studios Hollywood tram. So Joe did talk about the ice tunnel we talked about, and just basically saying one version featured Battlestar Galactica with cyclones positioned at the entrance, firing lasers. And that version could be seen in The Nude Bomb, which is a movie, and also featured in an episode of The $6 Million Man. So I thought that was pretty interesting for everyone out there if they want to see some of that ice tunnel in action or some of the Battlestar Galactica. Thanks for writing in and giving us some of that insight.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting. I'm showing, we have a visual aid here. I'm showing Eric right now. I got this off of eBay this past week. This is the Universal City News. This is the thing that was printed for Universal employees, and this is volume 3 for 1980. And what's interesting is they actually, toward the back of this, actually talk about the attractions found on the Universal tour. And they do, in fact, mention the Battle of Galactica recreates an alien attack on your tram. And you enter a giant UFO and a multicolored laser battle leaves your fate in doubt, But interesting, I don't see a mention here of the... Oh, here we go. They include and again, during this time in the park's history, it was known as the Doomed Glacier Avalanche. Wow. Now it's an avalanche. Okay. But, well, no, thank you, Joe. I appreciate, Joe, have any other memories of Universal back in the day he wanted to share?
Well, I think there was we talked about the Adam 12 experience, but also, there were elements, we talked about, Star Trek there once before, and then there was elements tied, I guess, to airport films. And also, he said that you can point out remnants of the collapsing bridge that can still be spotted on the studio tour today. So I'm going to keep note of that and check that out. It's if you look at the left of the tram in the Kong section on your tour, you can see what's left of the bridge structure. So I took note, and when we're out there and I'm doing the tram for the first time, I'm going to be looking for it. So I think and truth be told, thank you guys for writing in. We appreciate it. Send it over, Instagram, Facebook. Listen to the end of the show. You'll know exactly where we plug our stuff. So if you write into us, we will do what we can to get it on the show.
Cool. All right. Well, that ends the news portion of the show. Though, when we get to this week's feature, it does actually key off of a little bit of news. Barely worth mentioning. A change of a CEO at Disney, but we'll get to that in a moment. But first, this.
Every sip of Coca-Cola brings you closer to the excitement of the FIFA World Cup 26. to the joy. So grab a Coke and drink in the FIFA World Cup 26. No purchase necessary. 13 plus in 50 U.S. states and D.C. with a web-enabled device. Ends March 1st with 8 entry periods. Rules at cokeurl.com/soccer rules.
And we're back. Okay, so as Eric mentioned at the top of today's show, there's a new sheriff in Mousetown. Josh D'Amaro has just been named as Disney's new CEO, while Dana Walden has been named as the company's new president and chief creative officer, which means that Bob Iger going to be riding off into the sunset in the not-so-distant future. That said, Iger has already said that he hopes the company invites him back for various events, especially the opening of Disneyland Abu Dhabi, which, as of right now, is on track for a 2031 opening. And by the way, Eric,
it'll be here tomorrow, Jim. It'll be here tomorrow. That's how this time works.
It does. It moves very quick. Which, by the way, though, 2031 is also when Universal Studios Great Britain is supposed to open in Kempton Hardwick, Bedford. And next couple of years, folks, going to be very interesting in themed entertainment circles to see who winds up working on which international park. And anyway, back to Bob Iger now. He actually posted pictures on social media recently on his visit to Yas Island. That's where Disneyland Abu Dhabi is going to be built. And these pictures went up within the past 2 weeks, Eric, and they show him, walking this stretch of beach where this 480-acre the site where that theme park is going to be built. And Eric, I just want to note here, you gotta love the fact that, given the number of decades that Universal and Disney have been battling for theme park supremacy, I mean, you got to love the fact that, Disneyland Abu Dhabi, which got announced in May of 2025, is 4 acres larger than Universal Studios Great Britain, which got announced a month before that, April of 2025. 480 acres versus 476 acres. Oh. And Eric, that is not a coincidence. All right, that's very deliberate on Disney's part. It's a little bit of dick waving on Mickey's part. Just Disney doing whatever it can to take the wind out of Universal's sails. And I bring this up because for a long time, that was the Universal battle plan, that wherever Disney had a theme park, they needed one too. We've talked on this podcast previously about, again, Disney World opens in October of 71, and to get into the Central Florida tourism market as quickly as possible, MCA attempted a hostile takeover of SeaWorld back in October of 76, and we talked in a recent episode of Epic Universal Podcast about why that effort didn't work and that SeaWorld ultimately got purchased by textbook publisher Harcourt Brace and Yovanovitch. And then in fact, this show, we talked about just recently, late 80s, early 90s, as Disney was trying to turn a beat field 30 miles to the west of Paris into, a $1 billion resort. Here's Universal meeting with members of Maggie Thatcher's government with the hope of turning a 1,600 stretch of land along the Thames into, in the Rainham Marsh area, into Universal City, London. And that was proposed in 1990 and fell apart the following year, 91. Now, mind you, Universal does get a theme park built down in Orlando, likewise one over in Osaka. Universal Studios Japan is first announced in February of 96. Final agreement for this $1.7 billion project signed in 98. Park itself opens March 31st, 2001. By the way, we need to pay attention to that, Eric. The 25th anniversary next month. So we should do something about that on the show. Oh, yeah. Okay. So, and again, of course, Universal wants a park in Japan because Disney opened Tokyo Disneyland in April of 83. Now, where this gets interesting is the early 2000s. And this is when the management team at Universal Parks and Resorts decides that we need to make a change in strategy. By that, we need to stop building parks in areas where Disney has already built parks. And interesting thing, Eric, in-house at Universal, this was known as the Burger King strategy.
Okay.
Well, just the notion, if you think about it, out in the outside world, McDonald's will build one of its fast food restaurants in a specific area of a city. And within 5 years' time, Burger King will then build one of its own fast food restaurants within a block or two of that new McDonald's. And the thinking is that, well, look, McDonald's has already done the heavy lifting for us. They've managed to get this part of that town zoned for fast food. More to the point, they've created an appetite within the community for the sort of food that we serve. So, we can build a Burger King in the same neighborhood as a McDonald's and then reap the profits. And so this is why Universal was so eager to get theme parks built in Central Florida and Japan and Europe. Disney had plowed the road.
They already had Buzz Price probably figuring out if it was marketable, right? Like Buzz Price was in there saying, this is feasible. We could do this. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Not bad strategy.
Yeah, I mean, just again, time and again, it was proven that a Universal park in the vicinity of a Disney park would benefit financially from that proximity. Now, this thinking changes in the early 2000s. It's at this point that the theme park, side of Universal, it's like, well, what if we go where Disney isn't? We partner with somebody who has deep pockets so they can shoulder the bulk of the financial risk, and we provide our IP and our expertise when it comes to theme park design and operation. And by the way, worth noting here, Eric, Universal didn't come up with this idea on its own. They saw the deal that the Walt Disney Company had forged with the government of Hong Kong in 1999, with the government there agreeing to front the $3.5 billion that it was going to cost to build a Disney Resort and theme park in Penny's Bay in exchange for a majority share of the project, 57% of the stock. And so Universal's like, we could do that too. So this is why December of 2006, they announced a deal with Resort World Sentosa, which resulted in Universal Studios Singapore opening some 4.5 years later, May of 2011. And then just 5 months after that, Eric, we're talking April of 2007, Universal Studios Dubailand is announced. And this, just like with Universal Singapore, was supposed to be a $1 billion theme park. In fact, in this case, it was a $2.2 billion theme park that was part of a much larger project. And now, mind you, Universal Singapore does eventually open. I want to stress here, a full year after its previously announced 2010 opening date, whereas Universal Studios Dubai, despite prep work being done on the work site, and in fact, Eric, there are some fascinating photos out there of this work site. I mean, you can see the fully constructed entrance arch for the park. There are later photos that show the welcome center that got built there. Mm-hmm. You can actually see the earth-moving equipment digging out the lagoon that was the centermost feature of the park, and even the perimeter road around the work site was paved. But in spite of all of that stuff being completed, Universal Studios Dubai never opens. And why? We'll get to the reasons for that in a moment. But first, this. And we're back. All right, Eric. When Universal Studios Dubailand is first announced in April of 2007, and again, numbers on this park are $2.2 billion. But here's the thing, Eric. It's basically a best of the various Universal theme parks that existed around the world at that time. And we're talking Universal Studios Hollywood, Universal Studios Florida, Island of Adventure, Universal Studios Japan, and a park we talked a little bit on this podcast, Universal's Port Aventura in Spain. And all right. And by the way, there are wonderful photos out there of the actual model, some concept art. I mean, if you Google Universal Studios Dubailand, this stuff comes up. But let's take a quick trip around the park. All right. So you enter the property through the traditional Universal Arch. The main street for this park was going to be Hollywood Boulevard. Now, it was going to be largely enclosed for, again, we're in Dubai, in the desert. So you would walk up to this giant building that looked a lot like a movie palace. In fact, what was kind of interesting is the marquee of the building, where you would see, at a standard movie theater, the names of the movies that were playing. You had the 5 lands of the park. But anyway, once you enter the building, indoors there is a Hollywood Boulevard undercover, and in fact, it would feature the Mel's Diner we know from basically every Universal park.
Right.
Now you pass through that area, and you find yourself outside at the edge of Universal Studios Dubailand Lagoon. And if we start to move to our right, the first thing we encounter is Surf City. And the icon on this side of the park is sort of a recreation of the Hotel Coronado down along the shore in San Diego. Eric, this is largely the park's kiddie play area. It was going to have the Woody Woodpecker Nut House coaster that we used to find at Universal Studios Florida. Likewise, the Sesame Street 4D movie Magic film from Universal Studios Japan. There was going to be one definitely new ride, Curious George Goes for a Drive, which folks who worked on the park described to me as, kind of revisiting Disneyland's old Midgetopia. Anyway, all right, so we continue on from Surf City over to the next land in the park, and this is the Land of Legendary Heroes. And again, continuing our best of, this side of the park features a clone of Universal Studios Florida's Revenge of the Mummy, an indoor coaster. It would also have had inside of a giant theater a clone of Islands of Adventure's Eighth Voyage of Sinbad stunt show. Likewise, a copy of Universal Port Aventura's Tempo del Fuego walkthrough experience. Mayan temple, lots of fire. Ooh.
Okay.
And then also to give the kids something to do, over here we have a King Tut's Oasis, an outdoor water play area with a foam ball play zone. If you ever got into the Curious George Goes to Town thing at Universal Studios Florida, this is it. This with an Egyptian theme. There was also going to be a spinner back here, similar to Kang and Koda's Twirl and Hurl at Springfield, USA. Supposed to be named Flight of the Rock, and it was going to be built adjacent to the Eighth Voyage of Sinbad. Okay. And again, we continue on to the right around the Universal Studios Dubailand Lagoon. We now encounter Epic Adventures Land. And this part of the park was going to be home to 2 clones of Island Adventure rides, the Jurassic Park River Adventure. Likewise, Dueling Dragons from Lost Continent, though what's kind of interesting about this version of Dueling Dragons is it was supposed to be themed around Peter Jackson's King Kong movie from December of 2005. And then way to the back in this part of the park was going to be a clone of Universal Studios Hollywood's Waterworld show. And then finally, as we complete our circle through, around the lagoon, we arrive in New York City, where here we can view Blues Brothers Street Show, which will be performed several times a day. There's going to be a Ghostbusters trackless ride, making use of the same system as the Amazing Spider-Man, Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man at IOA, the Scoop. And then finally, there was going to be a Men in Black roller coaster, but again, reusing a previously designed ride system. This was going to be a clone of the Hulk coaster from IOA. So I know what we just described sounds like a lot of recycled stuff, which, by the way, was perfectly fine with Dubailand's investors. To be honest, they preferred tried and true, Eric, already proven ride shows and attractions from previously successful Universal properties. They weren't looking for new and adventurous. They wanted a fast and easy return on their investment. So, okay. Project breaks ground on July of 2008. Dubailand CEO Mohammed Al Habib and Vice President of Universal Studios Dubailand, Laurent Gingin, are on hand. By the way, Eric, you can also find this photo, online, and you got a feel for the teenagers who are dressed. There's two dressed as Woody Woodpecker and his girlfriend Winnie Woodpecker. There's two guys dressed as the Jackal guards from Stephen Sommers' the Mummy movie. And finally, there's a guy in a full walk-around raptor costume standing there in the hot sun in the desert sand. And it's like, oh, you couldn't pay me to do that.
No, I'd like to see what kind of fans they had set up off camera.
All right.
Or just ERs, like stretchers for when they passed out.
There we go. All right, so the project is originally supposed to open in 2010. Also, I want to note that was the original plan also for Universal Studios Singapore. But then, in the fall of 2008, Lehman Brothers goes bankrupt, which triggers a global financial correction, or as this event is known today, the Great Recession. And work pauses on both Universal Studios Singapore and Universal Studios Dubailand and again, this is early 2009, as the initial investors in these billion-dollar projects, they see their net worth shrinking. They see their assets dwindling, and it's like, hey, I think I don't want to be part of this anymore. Now, mind you, work does eventually start up again on Universal Studios Singapore, but as for that arch, that welcome center, that central lagoon, and the perimeter road that got built in Dubai, that this project was dark for quite a while, Eric. In fact, it's not till May of 2011 when things are finally looking up for Universal Studios Dubai. The Dubai Properties Group, the investors behind this multi-billion-dollar project, they start telling Wall Street, they're hanging there. I know, it's been a while, but we have a restructuring plan in place right now, and we're going to get this project back on track by year's end. And also important to understand here, folks, that the whole Dubailand project, and it wasn't just the Universal Park. There were a whole host of theme parks here. I mean, for example, the Legoland Dubailand. And this was because, Dubai was a country that was looking to pivot away from a petrochemical-based economy to one that would then be based on tourism. So, which is why this far into the project, with so many tens of millions of dollars already invested, the people behind the Dubai Property Group are reluctant to give up on the dream of turning this chunk of desert into another Orlando, a global destination resort. And given that Universal Studios Singapore opens in May of 2011 and quickly becomes a financial success, you can understand why, even though Universal Studios Dubailand is now years behind schedule, you can understand why the folks at Universal Parks are also reluctant to walk away from this project. So they continue to hang in there. And July of 2013, Universal's patience is starting to wear thin. And now, mind you, Dubai Holding Properties, again, is insisting to Wall Street. So, hey, talks are continuing with Universal Studios, and a new plan for Dubailand, Universal Studios Dubailand, will emerge shortly, but then nothing happens. And meanwhile, Eric, the Universal Studios Dubailand arch stands bleaching in the hot desert sun. The Welcome Center, again, built in 2008, standing empty for, what is this now, 5 years?
Yeah.
Likewise, the crater that was dug for the Universal Studios Dubailand Lagoon, all the earth-moving equipment is long gone. Now, mind you, the perimeter road still circles the empty construction site, which is why, because it's an empty construction site, it's now become a favorite place for local kids to race their cars. Anyway, in this same window of time, the Universal Park stateside and the Universal Studios Japan, they're making money hand over fist now, thanks to the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. In fact, the Hollywood version comes online April of 2016. Enormous success. And to be honest, this is kind of the inciting event to the folks up on the Black Tower there on the Universal lot out in Hollywood. It's like, I'm tired of waiting for Dubai Holding to get its act together. So they feel like we've been more than patient, and we've held off doing anything that might embarrass our Arab business partners, cause them to lose face, with the investment community. But that's it. We're done. So Universal discreetly sends over a team of workmen to the Dubailand worksite. They set up a scaffold in front of the archway and then paint over the Universal name on the studio arch. And only after
It's the worst breakup I've ever heard, Jim.
There we go. Only then do they formally let the Dubai Holding Properties people know that, we're formally withdrawing. It's been 9 years. Again, April 2007, we announced this. In 9 years, we've been more than patient.
Yeah.
Now, interesting thing, Dubai Holding Properties doesn't reveal this to the investment community that Universal has formally exited until October of that same year, 2016. And even then, they couch it in the blandest possible language, simply saying that we are no longer in talks with the U.S.-based theme park operator. And likewise, Universal is very careful, very circumspect with the language they use as news officially gets out that Universal Studios Dubailand is now finally and truly dead. In fact, what they tell the investment community in the fall of 2016 is like, while we are always open to opportunities in this region, we have stepped away from this specific project. And so why that specific language, Eric? Because, as one door closes, another door opens. And remember, as we talked about at the very top of this feature, that even though Universal began pursuing the idea of building a theme park and resort in the UK back in the late 80s, early 90s, that project didn't finally become a reality till just last year.
Right.
And it would seem that the exact same deal, the exact same thing is going on right now in regard to a Universal theme park and resort in the Middle East. And I want to say you actually talked about this when this news broke as part of a news segment on the Epic Universal podcast. This was December 19th of last year, 2025, and the Wall Street Journal reported that Universal was in the early planning stages of building a theme park in Saudi Arabia.
Right.
Do you remember any of the particulars?
Yeah, Jim. Yeah, I mean, we even talked about it earlier than that when it was just a blip on someone's news. Like, and I didn't think it was real. And I'm like, I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, then when the Wall Street Journal posts it, we kind of have a better clue. That's a little bit better of a source than some random one-off blog.
No, absolutely. And by the way, the financials of this project once again seem to be based on Disney's deal with the Hong Kong government, getting them to pay pay for the theme park and the resort that was built in Penny's Bay. The Wall Street Journal reported that this new Universal project for the Middle East is supposedly going to be financed by a Saudi government-based entity. Where this gets interesting is Comcast executives, when they were reached out to for comment on the story by the Wall Street Journal, were, of course, mum about the issue. But it's worth noting that back in November of last year, 2025, Brian Roberts, the CEO of Comcast, did travel to Saudi Arabia. More to the point, during his most recent trip to this Middle Eastern country, Roberts visited Qiddiya, which is Saudi Arabia's supersized entertainment and sports venue. Now, just to close this out, though, there were no Bob Iger-like shots out there on social media. Brian Roberts strolling along the seashore on a giant piece of empty real estate in Saudi Arabia. But gotta say, folks, again, Eric tripped over this story early, and now we've had the Wall Street Journal confirm this. So it's like, watch this space, especially on the heels of Disney now building a park and resort in Abu Dhabi, because this decades-old rivalry between these two themed entertainment companies, it continues even today.
Yeah, Jim. And I will tell you, so while you were talking about that, the pictures online of the model are quite fascinating. I would say everybody go out there and find this, because there is actually extensive amount. Not only there's great photos of all this project. I mean, it's done in a modern day, 2008. There's plenty of pictures there, so I would seek those out. And the other thing that's very interesting, Jim, is I get a lot of my news and a lot of my information comes from two sources: theme parks and pro wrestling. And just recently, they had the Royal Rumble, which is a big wrestling event in WWE for the first time over in Riyadh and Saudi Arabia. And guess what? Next year's WrestleMania is over in Saudi Arabia. And while I was watching this with my 8-year-old, they certainly had some tourism ads that looked very Universal, very Disney-esque, of families doing things and so forth. So they are absolutely using this tourism. They're moving forward with that. So it's not surprising at all that they revisit this region of the world. And yeah, Universal Park would look great there. Just make sure the arch is nice, and don't go painting over it. That's not any way to break up with somebody.
Yeah, so. I know. All right, and with that, folks, I think that'll do it for this week's edition of the Epic Universal Podcast. By the way, if you have any topics or suggestions for future shows, please feel free to send those along to myself and Eric through social media, and we'd love to follow up on those. And beyond that, I just want to thank you for listening this week, and we will be back with a brand new edition of this podcast next week. Till then, take care.